Mike, I want to ask you three areas about the kid that I've heard nothing but rave because you know him personally. You're there covering him every day of his college career. I've heard that this kid, you will never find another player with a higher football IQ.
Yeah.
That he is. Matter of fact, one person used the word to me. His kid is brilliant on the football field. You could tell he puts the time into watching film. That his mind is second to none. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, one of the keys when you're Georgia to winning games in the SEC is preventing big plays. Well, preventing big plays is just playing assignment sound football, right? Coaches always draw it up where there's somebody where they're supposed to be, but a lot of times if a guy doesn't make the proper read or doesn't, make the proper key or doesn't line up in the proper position, that's what kind of opens defenses up for big plays. And I would challenge you or anybody else watching to think to yourself, when's the last time you saw Georgia with a blown assignment that led to a touchdown? That was because Chris Smith was always there. He was always that stopgap. He's going to be one of the hardest. Now, listen, make no mistake about it. Jalen Carter is going to be one of the hardest players to replace in college football because he's an absolute train wrecker, as Kirby calls him. But Chris Smith is going to be just as hard to replace because of what he did for the back end of the defense. And that was assignment sound. And assignment sound is film study. And to your point, high football IQ, being able to make everybody else right, as Kirby says, recognizing that something's not quite right out there and being able to make those calls from the secondary, talk to those young players that have been on the perimeter next to him the last couple of years and make sure that everyone is right. And I just that's kind of one of those qualities that doesn't show up at the NFL Combine. I know they do their IQ test, but in terms of those intangibles, having a guy like Chris Smith that can make everyone right, and a guy that's willing to play on every special team. That's another thing about Georgia players. These guys play special teams. That's not considered something they look down their nose at. That's if you're a great player and you get chosen for a special teams unit, that means something to them.
Second thing I've heard about him, Mike, and you touched on it briefly, but I want to get in more, is that this guy's a freak. He's going to be in the weight room. I mean, he looks like he's chiseled out of concrete. He is very disciplined because he knows he's undersized in the weight room and disciplined in the cafeteria. Will you talk about that side of him, please?
Yeah, well, he's learned how to take care of his body. Georgia's been, the last couple of years they've had this $2 million football building with this cafeteria in it, and all their food orders are custom made and with a nutritionist. I mean, it really is a football factory in that sense. And Chris is a guy that was all in. And when you see how little that he came from in Atlanta, this is a guy who recognizes the opportunity. And to your point, as I said, when Richard LeCount went down in 2020 and Chris Smith was pressed into action, this was a guy that needed to get bigger, stronger, faster. And he went all in. He had an opportunity that arose sooner than he thought. He probably didn't think he was going to have the opportunity until the next year, but all of a sudden, and he's just jumped in with both feet. His nickname is Soldier Chris, Soldier Soulja. You can see that on Instagram, and I kind of like it because I think it fits Chris. He goes about his work like a soldier, serves his team.